don't see a video, that's okay. That's Thomas Frank Carr. I'm Greg Pickle. It is BWI Live for Wednesday, March 4th, 2026. Penn State football is now rolling closer to the start of spring practice, but not quite there yet. That's okay. We got a lot to get to. It's time to preview spring practice. We are going to take a closer look at the Nittany Lions quarterback situation as new offensive coordinator Taylor Mauser and quarterbacks coach Jake Waters get ready to head into spring practice at less than 100%, but with the starting quarterback they wanted to have on their roster for the 2026 season, and of course some others as well across the board. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into a lot more on today's show. Once we get through the look at the offense and the quarterbacks, we'll dive into the defense and some potential stars on DeAnton Lynn's side of the ball. The Nittany Lions have a new defensive coordinator, also plenty of new starters, and so we hope you enjoy the conversation, enjoy the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please do that here. It helps us. If you join us over at bluewhiteillustrated.com. That's Thomas Frank Carr. I'm Greg Pickle, Nate Bauer, Ryan Snyder, and Sean Fitz, always bringing the intel and conversation as well. You can join us there today at bluewhiteillustrated.com. T. Frank, it's Wednesday, March 4th. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but we're roughly, 17 or 18 days from the start of Penn State spring practice. The school itself is getting ready to go on spring break. The quiet period is back underway in recruiting, and I was just fixing a doorknob before we started today's show. And the guy on YouTube made it look really easy, and it was not easy. So we're going to try and do that today. We're going to try and make this look really easy, even though it is a rather slow time of year in the Penn State universe.
Anything with doors is impossible. I actually tried to replace my front door in December. And 8 hours later, I had a yawning hole in the front of my house, and it's just
put up the plywood
really
and call
easy.
it a day. Yeah, put up the plywood and call it a day.
Not. Yeah.
No.
So good luck with that. I hope that it worked out better than it did for me. We did call an Amish person to come over and actually set the door properly a week later, but it's not. This is way easier. This is just like, here's some thoughts and we'll get through it. We'll get through it together, as opposed to having to have something level and plumb in three straight dimensions. No. Sorry, you brought up a trauma to start the show.
That's just how.
On top of the fact that I didn't have the intro in here, which was embarrassing.
That's okay. We're going to kick things off that way. Nittany Eagle Brad said his phone broke, had to make a whole new, I'm assuming, YouTube account. Good morning to you, too. Glad you're back with us. We are interested in your thoughts and questions, so we'll have a mailbag segment as well a little bit later in the show. But, T. Frank, without a lot of news to talk about, there's been some all-combine teams out there. Penn State guys have been represented on those. Zachy Wheatley, a second-round selection of the Bears in ESPN's Jordan Reed's latest mock draft. Vega, obviously, Iwani going in the first round of everyone's mock draft. But I guess let me ask you on the spot as I sit here and get you going on this Wednesday morning. Wheatley in the second round to the Bears. What do you think of that coming out of his combine?
Well, what did he do at the combine? He didn't test, which is always a red flag, right? And I respect the process, and I think he's a good football player. I think he can start in the NFL. But Jaquan Brisker had a historically good season for Penn State. He ran a 4.5 and then went in the second round. A guy that I thought from a physical perspective, athletic perspective, was the best I've seen at Penn State. I don't, and I know KJ Winston was injured, and that was part of the conversation with KJ Winston, but those guys are both better athletes, and they went in the second and third round. I think Wheatley's a really good football player. I think he's got the instincts to make plays. I don't think he's good against the run, and I don't think he's fast. In the modern NFL that likes two safeties, like the split safety system, he's going to find a home, because you don't need to be an elite athlete to play the apex position, as that deep free safety. And he doesn't have to play in the box basically as a pseudo linebacker in, some of the defenses we saw a decade ago. But when you're prioritizing football players in the NFL draft, it's stupid, but height, weight, speed is important. And so, he does not check those boxes. This is always the problem, Greg, is it's going to sound like I'm saying he's not good and I don't like him and I don't think, all those things. And people get very defensive. I like Zachy Wheatley. I like his family. I have had really positive interactions with them throughout their Penn State career, both on social media. His dad is a big social media guy. I just don't think second round makes sense to me. I think he's a future starter in the NFL, but if you're prioritizing in the draft process, those are some issues I have.
All right. Well, plenty of mock draft and NFL Combine talk to come in the weeks ahead as the pro selection process gets closer. I need to make one correction quick when I told you about joining us at bluewhiteillustrated.com. Flash sale going on now just for you, so you get 50% off an annual subscription, new members only, as we welcome some new recruiting members to the Rivals national team. Also gear up for spring practice, so 50% off a subscription to bluewhiteillustrated.com live now. You can check things out there, including a more in-depth look at, and obviously, look at the quarterbacks in the Penn State quarterbacks room, getting ready for spring practice. The Nittany Lions back on the field March 24th. That will continue through the end of April, or darn close to it, and Blue White Weekend. Still waiting on details of that for those interested. But T. Frank, I guess let's just start at the top here. Penn State obviously completely turned over its roster by and large for the better part of 2025 compared to 2026. You have Rocco Becht obviously here getting ready to be the starter at Penn State, but will not be full go for the start of spring ball. Was able to recently start throwing again. Redshirt freshman Alex Manske here figures to project as the backup, and you have some younger guys we'll talk about as well. So we're not going to get into a Drew Aller conversation here. We've had plenty of those on the Wednesday edition of BWI Live, but give me the 100,000 foot view, and then we'll go down as we get out go throughout the show down to the 100 level on this quarterback room.
So the 1,000-foot level is it good, or how bad is it that Rocco Becht is going to be there for the start of spring ball, and then he hasn't been able to participate in winter workouts and those things so far because of the injury rehab? I am tending to think generally that it is not as big of a deal for him to miss, as he had said, probably half of spring football. He'll come back midway through, than it would be in any other situation. His offense, his offensive coordinator, his head coach, and all of his pass catchers are back. So they'll have time in the summer to work on some of those chemistry things. They'll have football in the fall, during camp, to work on those things in August. You would like to have that time, right? You would like to have all the time in the world. But at the same time, you are giving Alex Manske an opportunity to step in. And I think that is as valuable for the injury situation and the evaluation of him for the future, getting him ready so that he's presumably going to be the next guy up for Matt Campbell and Taylor Mauser. As it sits right now, it's as valuable as having your leader out there commanding the offense and getting to know everybody and all those things. So I do think that there is that aspect of, if he were coming in with brand new receivers, and there's receivers here he's got to get used to, there's guys for the portal that he has to get used to, but all of the main pass catchers, running backs, are all from Iowa State. So he's got to get used to Andrew Rappelier, who, by the way, is also out. So I don't know that it's not perfectly ideal, but it's also like maybe you'd have him do veteran rest reps anyway because of who he is and the context of him in this offense, not the offense new to Penn State.
I'd make the argument kind of along the lines of what you're saying, that there is more of an issue with how many guys overall are banged up on this team going into spring practice than it is that Rocco Becht hopes to obviously be back in the second half at some point of spring ball. How much he can do remains to be seen after definitely missing, it seems like, the first half. So, that's the bigger issue to me. You make a very good point that with Taylor Mauser here, with Jake Waters here, with obviously Matt Campbell here, the coaching side of things, the system side of things is squared away. To your point, many of the people he will be throwing to, in all likelihood, assuming things injury-wise and otherwise go as planned, are people he has done that with before. So the question I have for you, T. Frank, is simple. Can he build a relationship to make Kobe Howard a superstar by the time we get to the Marshall game in September?
I don't know.
I'm not going to make you answer that
this early. Please.
I'm not going to make you answer that. Let's move on to your breakdown of Rocco Becht, obviously an already accomplished passer at the college level. First, let me ask you this. When we were talking with him back at the player media availability that we had whenever it was. I think it was last week. Could have been 2 weeks ago at this point. But anyway, whenever we had that, one of the things I thought was obvious but also interesting is that, he's a guy that would have, I think, commanded interest in the portal from plenty of teams. And while he's a Matt Campbell guy, loyalty seems to be a pretty strong character trait of his. It would have had to have been hard, I think, to not at least listen to what was out there, because we know what the quarterback position, especially if you're experienced, can attract at the college football level in the transfer portal age of 2026. And so I was really, I just thought it was interesting to hear that, and I thought it was genuine that this guy was coming to Penn State pretty much from the moment Matt Campbell came to Penn State. It sounds to me like T. Frank, and we're getting a little ahead of ourselves here because he did have surgery. I'm not sure he was ready to fly anywhere at this point. But if he could have been on that first plane with Matt Campbell to State College back in December, I think he probably would have been.
That's a great point. Like the people that were very important are the GM, the head coach, the quarterback. That would be very NFL-like of them for them all to come at the same time. It's interesting. You say that about listening to other offers, and I just think that it's my perspective here, sitting in my office, talking to you on the internet, not having to have those really hard conversations about value and long-term decisions. Too many times we take life at a day at a time instead of trying to have a long-term view of what we're trying to do. I asked Rocco Becht about this at that press conference got one more year. What do you need to prove you can be a guy in the league? And basically it's like, go out and prove that I'm a quarterback. Like, the answer was what the answer was, but really that's the point. He's got 1 year to prove that he can be an NFL quarterback. So what's the best scenario for him to do that? To go to a different school with a different head coach and a different offense and learn all of that, learn all new teammates, and try to lead his team to a championship, a playoff, whatever it might be. It has been done by a lot of different players, right?
Yeah.
Iowa State, you might even say Rocco Becht would be a guy that could be poached from Iowa State to go somewhere else, but the whole system moved to Penn State. It's the perfect situation for him to get that bump up in talent around him while also staying in the exact same situation. So if you want the best possible chance to succeed, familiarity and opportunity are the biggest things that you need to have. And literally the difference is getting used to the town where your school, your buildings are on campus. If he's even going to school, probably going to school online. But yeah, but just where the facility is, all those different things, as opposed to I've got to learn everything else. Just giving yourself the best possible chance to succeed. It makes a lot of sense to come here if you're Rocco Becht, and to go somewhere else, you are then sacrificing the opportunity for short-term gains if there's more money on the table. But if you get to the NFL, there's a lot more money available, and everyone's trying to maximize that future opportunity. It just if you've got the goods to get to the NFL, that should be what every decision should be built around that thought.
Right.
And I think he's got the talent to, make it in the NFL at some level, which we're going to see here in a second, but it's, he's not a slam dunk, right? Even Drew Aller had a down year, he's going to be drafted. Rocco Becht could have the best year of his career, and he might not be drafted in the top in the first 2 days of the draft. So it's all about maximizing all those things, right?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I think Rob makes a fair point in the chat on YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast side of things, thank you very much. Leave us your comments. We will get to them on a future show and or over on the Lions Den message board. He mentions the bump up in the talent Rocco Becht will be facing is, well, he thinks it's more significant than Rocco Becht thinks. I don't know about that, but I'm sure Rocco Becht's aware of what he's walking into in the Big Ten. But that's kind of the whole point, right? Obviously, a lot of Penn State's team is Iowa State from 2025, but there's also some, high-level talent that is back here. So, yeah.
He's never played behind an offensive line like this one. I know that there's some questions and there's some young talent. He's never played with Anthony Donko before. He's never played with Cooper Cousins before. They've never had a guy like that at Iowa State.
And so the obvious point that I think wrap up this part of the conversation about Becht is if he can play well with, and whether it's the mostly guys from Penn State previously, or mostly guys from Iowa State previously. If he can play well with them, and they all play well against the competition Penn State will face in the Big Ten and beyond this season, it'll certainly do what, as much as possible to rise his draft stock heading into the 2027 NFL draft. First, we got to get through 2026 spring practice. That's what we're previewing on today's BWI Live, the quarterback position. So, T. Frank, where do you want to start? Really the kind of breakdown of Rocco Becht.
Yeah, so I've done a lot of these off-season film clips, and it's better to show in a lot of these situations than to tell.
Yeah.
But we're going to do both. So I asked Rocco Becht kind of a couple leading questions because I wanted to hear him say it, and I wanted you to hear him say it, about what he's trying to accomplish as a quarterback when he's under center. I understand you're trying to execute the play. What's your mentality? What's your personality as a quarterback? And here's that interaction from last
I would say my mentality is to do everything, give everything my all, and knowing that, I'm going to experience adversity, but to be able to mentally get through that is my biggest thing, and that's my mindset. I'm going into every single play. I know what I have to do. I know what where the ball has to go. I think confidence, to give you a short answer, is my mentality when I get up to the ball. Is I'm confident in what I'm doing. I'm confident in what I'm seeing, and I'm confident that I'm going to be able to execute the play.
Does that make you, or does that allow you to be more aggressive maybe than some other quarterbacks with the ball and with that confidence?
I think so, and I think anybody who has a good amount of confidence, it definitely makes you play more aggressive because you know what's going on, you know what you're seeing, you're not second guessing yourself, and I think that's what a lot of quarterbacks play with is high confidence.
So I want to take that and then show you what high confidence from top down looks like, from the offensive play call to the quarterback execution on this play. So here is a breakdown I did this offseason of Rocco Becht and Chase Soule completing a deep pass. And the differences, in my opinion, the important differences between what we've seen at Penn State previously and how this new staff approaches these situations that every offense sees in college football at the Big Ten level or not. So I don't know that I've done a great job of explaining why Iowa State wants the players they want in their offense the way they're designed. So it's 2nd and 7 here. The ball is on the 44-yard line, so we're past midfield, but this is prime shot play territory. And we're just going to go piece by piece here so you see what's going on this particular play. Iowa State wants to take a shot. They're across the, this is a shot time where if you don't get this play, then it's 3rd and 7 and, you can try and convert. But they want to be aggressive from the receiver position passing down the field. So let's take a look at what happens post-snap. First thing is you got an 8-yard coverage gap here. He's an 8-yard head start from this corner. And what we're going to see is that the boundary safety drops into the box. Now you've got cover 3. So this guy, again, head start on top here. Now, Eskildson, the other receiver, he's already stacked his corner and he's heading downfield. But what you have is, by alignment and design from the defense, we're going to take away this by staying on top of everything. And then down here, we're going to flood your underneath zones. In offenses we've seen, this is the difference is, okay, so it's cover 3. We'll snap this off and we'll convert this into a comeback route and we'll get 10 free yards. Well, that's fine. But eventually they start to attack that and they start to, make that a harder play to take. Well, Iowa State keeps you guessing. And by guessing, it means peeing your pants because Chase Soule, with one jab step, one fake inside step, then blows by the coverage and goes downfield. So the coverage said, hey, you're not throwing it deep. And Iowa State is like, oh, yeah, you want to bet? You want to bet we're not throwing it deep? And then they get a 46-yard explosive play to Chase Soule, who, again, ran past a DB with an 8-yard cushion. So, when we say where's the explosiveness in the offense and, maybe they're not as big and fast and explosive, the receivers were inconsistent last year. Chase Soule played through a shoulder injury. They did not have the year that they did the previous one with Jaden Higgins and with Jalen Noel, but they have guys that are big and can run in this offense.
So when you look at that, T. Frank, and obviously there's some conversation about it in the chat as well, but when you look at that and what this can do for Taylor Mauser's offense and combining that personnel and that scheme with what Penn State has here. What excites you the most about that?
Just the mentality shift that I talked about in that clip. That previously it would have been about conversion. It would have been about shot play. Well, it's not really open, so I got to check it down or I got to throw it away. Here's the thing about cover 3, what I just showed you. You can look at it two ways. One, they're staying on top of it and they're taking the deep pass away, and it's not there, right? Take what the defense gives you. But at the same time, when you run 2 vertical routes into cover 3, that is man coverage. It's one-on-one between the corner and the receiver. Rocco Becht trusts his receiver to throw that football with anticipation and timing to put the ball out in front of him. Hitting a deep vertical shot, not one where it's obviously open and you've manipulated the defense. It is one-on-one football, and we're going to win. So this is how you get explosive plays out of a 2 tight end set, because you saw they had 2 tight ends on the field and they were running a 2-man route. We've seen Penn State do that with both coordinators in the last 3 years. The difference is the people from top down have baked aggressiveness and explosive plays into the offense, the mindset of the team, and the execution of the plays. Down to what we need from the receivers, it's all intentional. It's all specific to this is what we need out of this position, and if you see this, take it. It's the mentality of, oh, you're one-on-one with me, not, hey, you've got an 8-yard head start. Who cares? I'm faster than you. And if not, a jump ball or a back shoulder are an opportunity for those guys to still try and make a play in those situations. So it's the intentionality of the quarterback position and the belief from the top down that that's going to be a part of the offense. That it's not going to be as I don't want to use it. It's not as scared. It's not as scared of an offense. I think I've fully talked Greg into a freeze. So I'm just going to keep going. Greg, catch up when you can.
And I think there's some conversation in the chat kind of morphing those 2 ideas.
All right. We're going to get Greg out and have him reset his Wi-Fi. Let's move on to the other parts of the offense, because I think that when you talk about Rocco Becht and you talk about how this offense is going to operate from the top down, that's the part. We already see that connection with Chase Soule. We already see that his mentality, how he operates the offense. So that's why we started with, it's important that he's out there to get in sync and to knock the rust off and all those things, which he can do with the second half of practice. But we need to talk about Alex Manske and what he is as a quarterback. And the problem is I don't have his – he had some passes. He threw the ball last year in some cleanup situations, but I don't have as much of that available to show you here on the show. But what we do have is his high school film, which you can check out here if you're watching on the YouTube channel. He is in a similar situation. You look at these highlight reels. Now, the highlights were a little bit different than his full game footage because, the offense was a little bit more inconsistent than what you would see, from these highlights. But what you can see, again, is the aggressiveness, the confidence, and the arm strength to attack downfield. And they're going to be asked to do a bunch of different things. And I know that I'm overemphasizing these things because it is the difference. It is the difference from one offense to the other that look and feel a whole lot alike. It is this kind of mentality from the quarterback where what I think the opportunity for him is, you'll see the way he throws. Watch how he throws the football and his back foot comes up on every one of these plays, even when he's throwing off platform. That is an area of his delivery he's got to improve, because that can lead to inconsistency and accuracy. It's not the way that modern quarterbacks throw the football. It's more of an old school, think like Tom Brady, Carson Palmer way of throwing. It saps some of the power in your arm, where you don't actually get all of that force and momentum you can generate to come through the kinetic chain in your body, through your arm to the football. A lot of technical nonsense. But basically, picks up his back foot, that's bad. He needs to fix that. Guess when you fix that? You fix that in the offseason. You fix that right now during spring football. And if Rocco Becht is not out there, he's going to have to take the majority of the snaps. Now, Having Connor Berry on the roster, I do think is important for the fact that they need to have more than one quarterback to run more than one offense. So you want to bring in a veteran, even if he is a guy that is not a scholarship football player, to come in and run the offense, right, Greg? And so you've got Alex Manske, and like Connor Berry actually fits into this conversation here. But you're going to give Manske as many of the reps as you possibly can to have him not just work on the offense because it's his second year in the offense, but also to have him work on that particular part of his game and get him a ton of reps before there's live bullets where he can try and ingrain a new motor pattern in his mind. Because a lot of this stuff happens as you train it, and then your instincts take over when the adrenaline starts to flow. And you need to have as much as possible in your training to reteach your body how to do these things. And that's, to me, like for spring football, for Alex Manske, that's what this is about. He's got to be able to hone in on that and fix that for spring football.
Yeah, I think it's not only that, Frank, but I think the point you made just a second ago is an even bigger one. The fact that Penn State comes into this spring practice with the quarterback roster that it does is not a bad thing in my mind, Frank, not at all. But at the same time, this is the case every year. We talked about this probably at this time a year ago, but you don't have a lot of, you don't have any, quite frankly, experience depth at the FBS level, certainly at the Big Ten level. I don't have Manske's stat sheet in front of me. I'm not sure if he got any action last year or not. If it was, I'm sure it was yeah. Okay.
He got in his biggest mop-up duty was against North Dakota State, I want to say, or North Dakota, one of the Dakotas, and he threw, I want to say 4 passes and had 7 runs last year. So there was one series where he had to come in for Rocco Becht when he got absolutely obliterated on a scramble, and they decided to wildcat run and then have him run the football. So they wasn't necessarily like they trusted him last year to come in even in injury replacement and throw the football.
Okay. So point being then is that, you're talking about a guy who, if he was, is always one snap away from, in all likelihood anyway, certainly Connor Berry could win the job. Either way, those two guys are going to get a lot of reps this spring. And the point being is that one of them, unless one of the freshmen come in and light the world on fire, which is seemingly unlikely, at least for their first year, maybe down the road they do. But, you're one of those two guys is going to be one snap away from potentially having to do anything, whether it's come in for an injury play or two or be the starter like Ethan Grunkemeyer found out. So the more reps you can get those guys this spring to find out exactly what you have with them, I think the better off this team is going to end up being, in the short term and in the long term. Because Rocco Becht's your guy. You're going to ride him into the ground. I don't love when quarterbacks come off of shoulder issues, and he's coming off of 2 of them, one requiring surgery and a non-throwing shoulder, one that did not. Not saying that's a foreshadowing of anything that would happen this year, but, ultimately the takeaway here beyond all else is that the more opportunity you have, you would love if Rocco Becht was fully healthy for spring practice. Even if he was, you can't convince me he wouldn't be on some kind of, senior snap count, if you will. And so these guys are going to get a lot of reps anyway. They're going to get even more.
Yeah, he's 6'1", 210, and I think the 210 is generous. You saw him in person. Like he's not a big guy. We've seen like Drew and even Ethan Grunkemeyer had bigger frames. Alex Manske, he's 6'3", 220. So I'm not trying to say Rocco Becht is not a good quarterback or anything, but running is an element in this offense on 3rd and short or 4th and short. They want their quarterbacks to be able to add into the run game and give themselves some advantages to pick up first downs. Becht is a sneaky good runner, but he's obviously not very physical. Manske is a little bit more aggressive and durable looking, even though injury is not necessarily entirely related to your size, because the bigger you are, sometimes the harder hits you take and the more punishment you're willing to subject yourself to. But as you just pointed out, he was injured last year, so you need to have a backup. So if anything happens, you have a guy that you feel confident with, who, as you mentioned, also in his second year in the offense, so it's not completely new to him.
Yeah, so I think at this point, it's safe to say that we know the top 3 of the Penn State quarterbacks room under first-year position coach. Well, first year at Penn State, but multi-year at the college level position coach Jake Waters, former Penn State recruit who ended up at Kansas State rather, coming out of junior college way back in the day when Bill O'Brien was here. But it seems like that's your order. At the very least, you have Becht on top, and then you have Manske and Barry, and then you get to the freshman T. Frank, and I'd like to move into a look at those guys. Penn State has 2 quarterback signees in the class of 2026. Peyton Falzone, well known to Penn State fans and those that watch this channel, and Kase Evans, a guy who had a pretty crazy recruitment. Let's start with him. He had a pretty interesting recruitment, a lot of changes in it, none because of him, and he ends up at Penn State, after a long and circling, I'm sure, process.
He's an interesting player, and quarterbacks are always hard to really get a sense of when they're in an offense like this one that Kase Evans was in, where basically they used his legs as a cheat code. And you saw it in the first play is him trucking a middle linebacker. But his skill is he's a deep ball thrower. Again, you look at the confidence, the aggression, and the touch to be accurate down the field. There's a lot of inconsistencies for him as a passer, but his offense was just like, it's hard to get a sense of what his mental acumen is for the game because there was so much cheat code stuff that was nothing he's going to do at the next level. So like you're looking now at the mentality of a guy who was kind of abused in high school, the amount he was run, and it was always a spread. He always had to, there was a lot of passes that were, kind of designed for him. He didn't necessarily do a lot of reading and coverage, but when he made plays, you can see like the plays he can make here. 6'3", 200 pounds already, probably bigger than that right now after going through winter conditioning, and a guy that's got a rocket for an arm. So he's built in that Manske mold. I think his footwork, you can see his delivery is better, so he's not working on that. But if you're asking me, like, if something happened to the top 2 quarterbacks, is Kase Evans going to be ready to play? I would have a hard time saying yes based on anything I've seen from him on film. And what I do is I take the evidence that I have and I try to understand what they know and they don't know. I don't know what I don't know. And what he's learned so far, his ability to learn, his mental acumen, it was all not there because of the offense he was playing in. I would be highly uncomfortable saying that Kase Evans could play this year just because there's so much stuff he's got to learn. But the tools are there for him to be a high-level quarterback in the future if he can, develop the mental side. All the physical stuff is there. Arm strength, mobility, size, aggression as a runner, can be a complete quarterback. And so, great for the future, questionable for the intermediate and for the short term.
And I guess I'll see what your thoughts then are easy for me to say this morning. This is the March 4th edition of BWI Live. That's Thomas Frank Carr. I'm Greg Pickle on Falzone. Peyton Falzone, a guy who Penn State's previous staff thought might be a tight end at this level. Obviously, he had a couple different commitments during the course of his recruitment, but toward the end, Terry Smith and co. bring him back into the fold. Pennsylvania native quarterback at the high school level, obviously a quarterback on Penn State's current roster. I know you've broken him down extensively on this channel, T. Frank, and at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com, but for those who might just be tuning in or for those who just need a refresher, let's break down Peyton Falzone.
Yeah, if he works out, he's Colin Kaepernick. Just wildly athletic, every tool you could ever want, and have a guy that has unbelievable potential. But that's where it ends, because he's a guy that has... I give him credit for trying, right? I respect people who are doing the right things in order to achieve the goal that they want. And he has been traveling to Ohio to work with Brad Mandler from Nazareth, Pennsylvania, which I think is a minimum 7-hour trip, multiple times over the last 2 off seasons to work on his throwing motion and become a better quarterback. Because footwork is one thing. Throwing motion, how you actually throw the football, is a very different thing. And very few people actually change their throwing motion, despite what we've seen from, like Josh Allen is one guy who has done that, right? Most people, your throwing motion starts when you're like 7, the minute you can pick up a football. Or, if you've got small hands, maybe 11 or 12. So those things are harder to break. Those are harder things to change. And there's multiple layers of things that Falzone needs to fix. Also, as you pointed out, he committed to the program in December when the team did not have any commits. And they did not have a coaching staff either. So technically, You can say that this staff did not recruit Peyton Falzone. So he's going to have a higher level of prove it in this situation to be a quarterback specifically. And, you know, I'll give him the opportunity, but the experts who are in the room, you know, they've got to be convinced that he's a quarterback of the future and worth investing time and a position in the room to have him develop into that. If they don't think, like, just fundamentally he's not going to be able to do it, I don't know that he's on Penn State's roster after this year, because he's been very adamant that he's a quarterback. And, you know, that feels like a guy who might want to transfer, go to like a D3 level to try and just see if he can make it work by being a quarterback on the college level, D2, whatever it might be. So I think it's a big spring and a big summer for him to be a Penn State quarterback of the future because of all those things we just talked about.
So I guess coming out of this look at the Penn State quarterbacks room, T. Frank, it would be easy, I think, to be down on this Penn State quarterbacks room. And if you want a glass half full approach, I think you would be looking at it as, well, you have Rocco Becht in a system that he knows very well, and that he's in a good place in his rehab, should be healthy for some of spring practice, and obviously knows Taylor Mauser's system inside and out. If you were trying to be glass half empty, you would say they have a starting quarterback coming off of injury and positively no, real experience to speak of behind him. And obviously, once you get past Manske, who I believe was obviously a well-regarded recruit, you have a Division III transfer and then two guys, Kase, Yvan, and Peyton Falzone, who have obviously never played at this level nor had the chance to. So it's an interesting room. I guess one thing I'll say is this. It'll be interesting to see what we hear about those guys during spring practice, because I think whether you're glass half full or half empty right now, the chat seems to be a little bit split here on the YouTube channel, Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, please. No matter where you are at this point, and I think either side of that coin's justified, we're going to have a much better read for it, I think, at the end of April.
I think Beck's a good quarterback. So if you've got a good quarterback, you got a chance. And his aggression, and I'm starting to soften on the injury thing with Becht as a reason he was inaccurate.
Yeah,
I'm still uncomfortable because he completed 59% of his passes in 2024 too. So like with NFL receivers, like there were still some accuracy things, but it just like it doesn't track to me because those deep balls are really good. His passes, like the highlight reel is really impressive. And so I think he's a good quarterback. I think indecisive. Again, is he decisive? Does he understand the picture? Is he going to go out and execute the play? I think all of those are yes. I don't think he has a hard time diagnosing coverage. To me, it's more his feet get a little jittery in the pocket. He gets a little bit antsy when there's pressure. And so that a lot of quarterbacks are like that. And if he wasn't, by the way, he'd probably be in the NFL already. If he didn't have any flaws, he'd already be an NFL quarterback. And then Manske, really to me, it's about is Manske going to be ready in time? On the timeline of does Penn State have a quarterback of the future to fix some of those issues? Because I think Kase Evans has a lot of talent and there's a lot of potential there, but he's another guy that I would say is 2 years away, right? And so is Alex Manske a year away? Because that's what you're hoping for. Is that these guys are a year away and 2 years away, and that they are going to be ready because these are guys that have raw potential. But this is a really good staff on identifying the mental traits that make up good quarterbacks and then developing those guys to be productive on the field. And so it's just about the timeline of development for those younger guys, which I don't know. There's some red flags with Manske. I am concerned about that middle option here because of the footwork.
All right. I guess last word on this for me. I am comfortable buying Rocco Becht stock for the 2026 Penn State football season. I am more of a hold position for the room overall as we head into spring practice. Fair place to be?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. That's Thomas Frank Carr. I'm Greg Pickle. It's BWI Live on Wednesday, March 4th. That's our quarterback preview. Stay tuned for more spring practice preview content as we get ready for Penn State to kick off drills on March 24, and we're going to continue doing that on today's show by flipping over to the defensive side of the ball and taking a look, T. Frank, at who some guys are that have star potential on the side of the ball for a new Penn State defensive coordinator, Letterman. D'Anton Lynn, obviously a guy that Penn State previously wanted to pry out of USC, was unable to do so during the James Franklin era, makes it happen to get him to State College for the start of the Matt Campbell era. So set up the conversation here. I think you guys did this on offense on a previous show. I could be mistaken. But anyway.
No. I've been waiting to play that graphic for a while, so I'm very excited that we got to play that graphic.
Completely understood. All right. Well, the parameters here, I guess, are pretty simple. We're looking at guys who have the potential to be the playmakers that change games on Saturday for this Penn State defense in 2026. And I think what's so interesting, T. Frank, is that in so many previous off seasons, you had a good feel. I'm not saying we don't have a good feel for it at this point, but when I was walking around talking to guys at that player media event a couple weeks ago, one thing kind of became clear the more I talked to various people. Some of them were more willing than others to talk about Lynn's system, but obviously there's plenty of install work to do. Lynn talked to us previously about the way he intends to do that, and obviously evaluating his talent will be the first step in that process. You'll have some base, obviously, and things like that, but long story short, I think that is good. You know, everyone wants to talk offense all the time, quarterbacks all the time, with good reason. But this defense might fascinate me as much as anything about this Penn State team in 2026.
Yeah, the way I've been trying to describe it and my view of what they're trying to be is solid. And so I think a lot of people go, oh, that's how awful, right? Like, we don't want solid. But, like, solid could be a top 10 defense. It may not take the ball away. It may not lead in sacks. But if it doesn't give up points and it doesn't give up, like, back-breaking moments, you've got a lot of veterans on every level of this defense that have some unique characteristics and some specific skills. So, like, if they can be a dominant run-stopping team because they've got a bunch of guys that are good at doing that, I think there is a path for this team to then create some of those havoc situations because they got smart guys that can play a veteran style of football, right? So you might not have an Abdul Carter, but if you have 11 Jair Browns, you know, of various skill sets, some more athletic than others, but all of them play with good instincts. They're all really intelligent football players, and they can make the plays they need to make, and then every once in a while make an opportunistic play. That is a really good defense, and that is, to me, the needle they're trying to thread. Now, it's easier when you got a superstar, but to me, it's not even like who are these guys that are going to be the next draft pick. It's who are the guys that they are going to build the plays around. Who's going to be put in position to make the tackle, get the catch in an interception, to get the sack, to get the run to the quarterback. And that's what I think of when I think of these potential starts. The guys that are going to show up and Penn State fans are going to like. And that's why I kind of wanted to go through these three players. 3 options from either of us. So we're given 6 different potential players on an 11-man defense.
All right, let's get to number 3.
Number 3.
All right, so let's talk about this new Nittany Lion together because we have him on different spots of our list. But Marcus Neal, new Penn State safety, guy who was very productive at Iowa State. You put him here at number 3 to start your list. I actually have him at number 1, but I'm curious just your opinion of his game so far and how you think that can translate to Penn State in the Lynn defense in 2026.
So I'm going to start with some of the good, and then I'm going to get to that question because I think that's the biggest wild card and why I don't have him higher on the list. I actually have some clips because I was desperately trying to find some I'm trying to do something on the linebackers to try to explain what the defense they were in previously. And every time I was trying to break something down on Cooper Ebel, I just kept coming across Marcus Neal. So here are 2 clips of him playing in the Iowa State defense and what strengths he brings to the table. Here is a great blitz from Marcus Neal. One of the things I think they're going to use him, some of the versatility he brings to the table is using him around the line of scrimmage as an extra defensive back who walks down and can blitz. So look at the anticipation on this blitz. He's running at the snap. This is great time. He times it up to where he's moving before the offensive, like at the same time as the offensive line. This is hard to see sometimes with the snap, but like, pause it right here. Do you see how he's already midway through his first step and hands are still in the ground, just getting out of your stance, just pulling up, not moving yet, just shifting over, and he's already in motion. The anticipation And he may not have elite long speed, but his burst, his acceleration in short areas is awesome. Watch the way he's able to run this hoop, hit the running back, play through the contact, square his shoulders, and get a hit on the quarterback, which leads to an interception and a crappy throw. So there are some pretty insane Marcus Neal pursuit clips out there in his 2025 film. But I wanted to show you this one because I think it's the most relatable to the job he's going to do. I believe they're going to have him more in a safety role for Penn State this year. So let's pause this right here and see this outside zone with a lead block coming from this way, right? So we're running this way, outside zone. Marcus Neal's here. He's the backside safety. So like you got your contained player here. This is supposed to be your safety that is part of run support, right? So he's on the backside here. He's going to make the tackle at the point of attack. This is kind of a tame one, but to make this play is awesome. He gets there at the same time as the safety on the front side, maybe even a little bit before. That level of pursuit, again, his closing speed, his burst, his desire, these are all things that are high-quality skills in a safety, even if he doesn't have blazing deep 40 speed. So that's kind of, you'll notice both of those plays are attacking the line of scrimmage, coming downhill, being near the line of scrimmage or in the box generally. The thing that happened in the defense last year, being that middle safety, is you get protected a lot of times in coverage situations. One-on-one coverage wasn't necessarily his strength. Running with receivers down the field, having feel for zone and making plays in the passing game where it isn't like a linebacker, I think that is an area where it's a little bit, I'm a little concerned. And so, like, are they going to make him a Sam linebacker? Or is he going to be a boundary safety? Because if he's out there playing in the flat and he's kind of a hybrid defender, then that changes what they're going to need at safety. It's going to change my anticipation of who's playing that boundary safety role. And then obviously there's a situation with Zion Tracy. Like this is the thing. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different versatility in this defense from the players that they've brought in from the portal that I don't know right now where they're going to use Marcus Neal, when, and how. Because you can put him near the line of scrimmage as a boundary safety and use some of those traits to your advantage, but it won't be like it was at Iowa State where he was the leading tackler. I don't see that in a more traditional sense, and that's why I have it at number 3, just because I don't know exactly how it's going to translate to Penn State and this new defense under Lynn.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the most interesting thing that we learn, and probably won't learn honestly until later this year in the summer. Is just who they're going to build this defense around. That's what we're trying to get into here. I think we can both agree that Marcus Neal will be a part of the defense. That how much he's built around in it, we'll see. But I just have a hard time believing you will not be hearing his name called quite a bit on Saturdays. What role that comes from and what that looks like is something that remains to be seen. Let's get to number 2.
Number 2.
Frank, we go different directions here, but at the same position. Give me your pick.
Yeah. Originally, I had Tony Rojas, but I changed it to Caleb Bacon because of the same reason. Well, first off, I don't know if when Tony's going to be healthy and how healthy he's going to be, because for him to be the star of the defense, athletically, he's the most talented player on defense. Just full stop. But is he going to be that guy this year? And is he going to have enough time to get into everything and have time to come back? It sounds like he will. But I'm hedging here. Yeah. And I'm going to go with Caleb Bacon because I think the versatility to rush the passer and blitz and also be a box defender, there is an upside there from a hybrid linebacker defensive end role that they need, given they don't have a ton of defensive ends. So if we're talking about who's making plays, I think Caleb Bacon could be a guy that makes a lot of plays, even if I don't think he's the most athletically talented guy that can be the superstar linebacker that everyone's expecting. But I think he can make a lot of plays.
Yeah, I put Rojas at number 2 here, but I'm with you. You hedged wisely. I dove straight into it, kind of how I operate too often. But for me, yeah, that is the concern here. That is the concern of having him at this part of the list. I mean, he said everything you're supposed to say about his rehab and everything else when we talked to him a couple weeks ago, and obviously guys come back from all kinds of issues faster than they maybe have in the past. But when exactly he'll be ready to Not just take the field, but take the field as the Tony Rojas we've come to know and expect on the field. Could be two entirely different things. So yeah, I think there's a reason he should be on this list, but at the same time, I'm with you that when you look at him and what he is, what he is possibly going to do in this defense, I think it's really exciting. But to your point, you just don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah, and he can play inside, outside. He can play, both outside linebacker positions. He can play middle linebacker if he's fully healthy. So the opportunity to scheme plays around him, that is the guy you'd want to scheme around. But, I'm too hesitant at this point. Also, I've dove too far in on the Tony Rojas hype, so every once in a while I need to back off just to kind of like regulate myself.
I completely understand, T. Frank. All right, let's get to number one.
Number 1.
All right, like I mentioned, I had Marcus Neal here, but we're going to focus on two freshmen here in this part of the show. Yours is Daryus Dixson. Mine is Yvan Kemajou. We think that we saw a lot of exciting things from those two last year, and for Penn State to be able to retain both of them, obviously huge. I have little doubt that Kemajou could have fetched, a fine, compensation package. I don't know how else to put it. If he had decided to move on, I'm sure he fetched a fine one at Penn State. Obviously, same deal with Dixon. So, T. Frank, to keep these guys in the fold has to be something that, if Lynn was going to come to Penn State, he was going to come probably regardless. But when these two guys are on the roster, it makes the start of the thought process about what your defense is going to look like certainly a whole heck of a lot easier. Yeah,
and Kemajou is a guy that's come up a lot for the people we've talked to, the coaches and the players, of somebody they were very impressed with and excited to work with on the Penn State roster. He was kind of, I don't want to say under the radar, but because of Chaz Coleman, he was not seen as much of a freak for what he was at 6'3", 252 as a freshman. But he's more physically developed than Coleman, which is super impressive to say. I guess the thing where I want to see some growth from him is a little more burst and a little more finesse to get off blocks. That's the problem, is like Coleman had that part down, right? And that's the rarer thing. And again, I'm doing the comparison thing, and the one guy is gone and the one guy's here. But with Kemajou, like the template, the raw clay and what he's able to do in year one for a true freshman at defensive end was really impressive. And so the upside there as a pass rusher, they desperately need that to come through, because he can be great against the run. He can take a step forward in everything. But if they don't have a guy that is like their, I don't even want to say ace, but just consistent in getting pressure, that's the biggest red flag with this defense, is where is the pressure going to come from? Can Denton Lynn scheme up pressure as opposed to having somebody get home with 4? Because I think ideally they want to get home with 4. They don't want to be blitzing a ton, but they will zone blitz and have these versatile bodies to do a bunch of different things if they can. And that's where Kemajou's versatility and his upside, I think, are super important for this defense.
Yeah, Z-Man, I knew this was going to come up in the chat. No mention of the big boys / defensive tackle portal additions in the trenches. I just don't know enough about those guys right now, to be completely honest with you.
They're not stars. That's kind of what I was saying in the high-level view of this thing is, if you think run stuffers are stars, you're watching the film, you're paying attention, but their goal isn't to make tackles. So if we're talking about who are the stars of the team, you're not going to get pass rush from those guys, just because, like, historically they've been here for 6 and 8 years and they have not produced a lot of pressure. And their job, as Akaka Malloy said, is we need to take up blocks so that the linebackers can go make plays. So if we're talking about who you like and who you don't like on defense, you're going to see more from Cooper Ebel and Kale Brzezina and the linebackers than you are going to hear about those defensive tackles. Now, they got some talented guys that are going to be in the rotation, but I think in the future they have an opportunity to be, breakout players that are younger now. But those top 2 that we kind of have penciled in as starters, they're not in the consideration for like making breakout plays.
Right. All right. Well, that is a look at who could be stars on defense. T. Frank's final point makes my pick of Tony Rojas look even better. Do you have one more?
Yeah, Daryus Dixon was my pick here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, we completely skipped over that part of the freshman conversation. I'm sorry. Yes. Mentioned him at the top of this little mini segment and forgot to get to him. Go ahead.
The versatility of having a guy that's a number 1 style corner that can play zone and man and can do a lot of different things, had such a high floor as a freshman and was still learning the game. if there's one guy that does have superstar characteristics that we've seen that could break out and genuinely be a star, it's Daryus Dixson. Again, the speed is a concern for me, but it was not a problem for him last year. And he could have gotten better. Like he can improve on those areas to where it's, fast enough. Like the obsession with 4.2 speed is a little bit overrated, and I am guilty of that. But he's right on that line of like, is he fast enough to run with anybody? Can you put him on any receiver and lock that guy down? But the physicality and the intelligence he plays with, the instincts he has, all make him a number one corner. And to have that as an anchor on your defense, even if you don't have an elite pass rush, is such a huge advantage because you can start to shade coverages different ways. You can decide to leave him on an island if you want to. You can build concepts around knowing you have somebody that you really trust. And I think that can provide them with the opportunity to take numbers and bodies and put them elsewhere to get pressure, which then enhances everything. And I think that, you need to have one of those things where you can say, this is our advantage, and we're going to play off of that. And I think the secondary in general, those corners in general, but Dixon as the lead guy here, I think is the potential star for next year.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what his second year looks like at Penn State. We saw, obviously, what he was capable of in year one and a bigger role as the season went on. But also, just say, not necessarily to extend this conversation, but don't sleep on all Davian Collins either. I think having him back will be more beneficial to Penn State than maybe some folks are thinking out there at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. All right, let's get into this week's look at best bets from BetMGM. All right, folks, best bets from BetMGM. If you haven't signed up yet for BetMGM, use bonus code ON3 and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code ON3. That's O-N, both capital letters, 3, the number. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure you use bonus code ON3, letter O, letter N, both capitalized, number 3, when you sign up. And if you do, you can check out the Quarter Legends. There's no better place to be during March Madness than Las Vegas. This year, college basketball fans can win a VIP trip to the Quarter Legends event featuring the Cavender twins. Simply play sports bets, and your position on the leaderboard will determine if you win one of the 25 grand prize packages. Just sign into your BetMGM account, opt into the promotion, then start placing bets of at least $10 to climb the leaderboard. Make this March 1 to remember. Join the Court of Legends leaderboard and make it legendary. Appreciate BetMGM for always being a part of the Wednesday edition of BWI Live. T. Frank, I have one bet, and it's for a game that could lift one team into the position to go to March and has a chance to be legendary, but the other one's just trying to play spoiler. Yes, I am talking about tonight's Penn State basketball matchup with Ohio State. The Nittany Lions are not just playing out the string here, but essentially are at this point of the season. No March Madness hopes in their future. No really postseason hopes of any kind in their future.
I think they're going to win the Big Ten tournament. Are they eliminated? Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're actually, I'm sure I'm speaking slightly out of turn here, but I do believe they are back to taking all the teams to the Big Ten tournament. So I guess Penn State will get a game, but maybe they go on a run. I highly doubt it. Good luck beating Michigan, let alone getting that far. But anyway, looking at this game tonight, Penn State, Ohio State to 7:30 tip. I would assume it is on the Big Ten Network, but I will double check that. I'd like the over here, over 152.5. Previous show, we went with Penn State playing somebody and had the over, and it was comfortable. I just think that Penn State's lack of interior defenders is something that, it's been talked about at length throughout the course of this season. Ohio State should have its way in the paint. And pretty much, I think, I'm not going to say it's going to come out and shoot 80%, but I think Penn State will put it in the hoop a little bit as well tonight. So I like the over here, 152.5. I was tempted to take Penn State in the points. When we first logged into the studio at like 9:50 Eastern time this morning, it was at 8.5. By the time I checked the line midway through the show, it was down to 7.5 at BetMGM. So a little bit of Penn State money coming in. Everyone loves their home conference dogs at this time of March. I'm not going to go that route, though. I'm going to take the over. And you can also check out the World Baseball Classic over on BetMGM, too. That's gearing up here as well.
Yeah.
Excited to watch Team USA. So, yeah, check it out over at BetMGM, where you can place, everything from you can join the I'm sorry, I lost my spot here. You can join anything from the Court of Legends, and also there's some college basketball and any sport parlay boost tokens over there as well. Check them out at BetMGM.com.
See BetMGM.com for terms. 21 plus only. U.S. promotional offers not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts, 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa, and 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer now for new customers only. Subject to eligibility requirements. Rewards are not withdrawable bonus bets that expire in 7 days. In partnership with Kansas Crossings Casino and Hotel.
All right, home stretch time is here for this week's edition of BWI Live, the Wednesday version anyway. The guys will be back tomorrow with the recruiting show. Ryan Snyder, Sean Fitz joining T. Frank. Special guest I heard about, too. I don't know if you want to promote that or keep that under your hat for now.
Alan
but
True.
Yeah, go ahead.
He's we spoke to him earlier this week. He's coming on the show tomorrow, so make sure you tune in for that.
Great guy.
Get a lot of,
great guy.
Yeah, he was super awesome. First time that I spoke to him was this week, and was super great to work with, and I'm excited to do that in the future. And he has a lot of great intel on this particular staff, giving you some of the insight of being the Midwest reporter and this team that lives and thrives in the Midwest coming over here to Penn State. We got a lot of good intel as far as his recruiting views about the staff and who the best recruiters are and their views of certain positions. So Fitz and he had a great conversation that we're going to play tomorrow on the show. So make sure you join us to check that out.
10 a.m. Eastern time. That's when BWI Live returns here on the Blue White Illustrated YouTube channel. That's Thomas Frank Carr. I'm Greg Pickle. Another edition is in the books. Thanks for being with us. The countdown to spring practice is on. Big Ten Wrestling Championships coming up this weekend. More coverage of that. Recruiting, anything else that comes our way that wants to go your way, we'll share it with you at BlueWhiteIllustrated.com. Don't forget that flash sale going on right now. 50% off for T. Frank. I'm Greg Pickle. We'll talk to you next time.